All right, let's go to Scott Tague.
Hey everyone.
Got you, buddy.
So let's see, we'll start on this camera. So we're gonna make a game for the grandkids this week. And it's called a Kendama. So the object of it is to catch the ball on the spike, that cup, or that cup. And believe me, it's not as easy as it looks. The spike is the hardest thing. I've only, out of probably a half hour monkeying around with it total, I've caught it maybe 3 times in a half an hour. So this is what we're going to make. It's in 3 parts. There are some critical measurements, which I'll eventually get up on the website so you can see what they are, because you're not going to be able to write them down fast enough, I'm sure. But we'll talk about them as we go along. And we'll talk about some of the potential problems and maybe even some of the potential fixes as we go along. So let's get started.
All
The
right,
first
so
thing.
let me mute everybody first, Scott.
Yep.
And as normal with the demo, if Scott solicits our questions and comments while he's demonstrating, that's the time to say something. Otherwise, we'll keep our comments and questions for after the demo. So I'm going to mute everybody now. Scott, you will need to unmute yourself.
I'm going to try to do this tonight without my headset. Am I loud enough for everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing we're going to start out with is we're going to make this cup. That's the first step in making this tool. The last step will be making the spike. I am going to admit I did cheat. I bought the balls. I can buy them for $1.25 a piece. I can't turn them in a demo in an hour. I'm not that good. So I have to admit I did cheat. I will drill the hole in it though. I'll show you how to drill the hole in it. So we're going to get started. Put my face shield on. Hopefully everybody will be able to hear me without it. If you can't, I'll put my wireless mic on, but I'm going to try not to do that. It's hard to wear the face shield and the mic at the same time, the type I have. So is it the light good enough? It looks good on my end.
Looks fine.
Okay. So the first critical measurement is this. Let me get my little demo piece. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set this outside dimension, because we're going to turn this off, and then this has to go into a jam chuck or some type of collet chuck to hold on to it so you don't mar the finish. You can see that it has a little bit of a taper. So this outside dimension is pretty critical. I'm going to try to get it to fit in this jam chuck that I made. The thread's right on my lathe. This one doesn't fit real well, so I had to use the collet chuck, which is, so this is the collet chuck that I made. It's a piece of PVC pipe, a hose clamp, compression, outward compression from my jaws, and then this fits in there, and I just tighten it up around the band clamp, get it centered as close as you can, and then you turn the other cup, the small cup. You always start with the big cup first. So we'll get started. I have a set of these set to the correct dimension, which in this case is 2 inches. And how I set mine is I always set one edge on the 2-inch line, and I bring this one around. And I got this one set just a little proud. I'd rather be a little oversized and have to take it down as I work to get it on that jam chuck. And I'll show you that as I go along. So right now, I rough turned this, and it's right at that dimension right now. So now I'm going to work with my jam chuck. I'm going to use a spindle roughing gouge. And that's what I've used so far, and it's pretty smooth. This is a piece of basswood. Any kind of hardwood would work. And it really doesn't matter what you use. I've got a maple one here, and it gets just as beat up as the basswood one or the popple one that I've also built. So I'm just going to turn this up to about 1400 RPMs. I'm just going to work this last little bit here. I know how I had my calipers set. They're about a 1/16 of an inch over. Pull this out of the way, back this up. I'm just going to slowly sneak up on this to get this to fit on here. Tight, very tight, actually. You don't have to use the tailstock. I just do because I can. It's getting pretty close. Go just a little bit more. Now you can see there's a little bit of a line here. I hope it shows up on the camera. So now I can trim this back section down to match that line. Now that I got that pretty close, I'm going to mark out the next step, which is, let me get my little demo piece. So you can see on here that this has a slight taper. So this outer edge will be cut down to this diameter. This is now our 2-inch diameter. This is roughly 3/8 of an inch, approximately. Now I have to reset my calipers to 1 11/16. That's what the outside of that cup's going to be at the bottom, the smallest part. This is purely decorative, this part, so you can make this. Doesn't have to be quite as precise as the rest of it. I'm just going to take a parting tool. That's pretty close. Now I'm going to take a easy wood point tool, just so I don't lose that line that I just put on there. Put just a little mark in there. I'm going to take my badan because it's 3/8 of an inch. Connect the line. I'm not going to go all the way to that cut line. The reason I didn't go all the way to that cut line, that's my final height. That's going to work as my jam. My jam chuck. You can see that it's just a little bit too snug, which is a good thing. This is where you tend to overcut them. And what you do behind this line doesn't matter because you're going to cut that away anyway.
Yeah, you're doing a good job sneaking up on it.
That's the idea. A lot of back and forth at this point. But it's easier to go back and forth than it is to try to put the wood back on. You can see that that's really tight. It didn't go on there far. But you got to remember what this piece looks like on the backside now. This is going to go away. So it's only holding on this little flat spot that you've created on the top here. That's all that's holding that when you put it in the jam chuck. So you just want to go about that far with it. I'm going to remeasure this quick. Actually, I can still see my line. You're going to sand some of this away later at a later point. So it really doesn't matter if you have all these pencil marks. They're just a guide. You just want to leave that flat spot. That's basically all I'm trying to do, is leave that there. So your next measurement now is going to be between the two cups. You want to set this inside diameter. So the distance between those two cups is 2 inches. I'm going to find it here on my drawing. Yep, 2 inches. I'm going to make a mark over here. I'm going to split it in the middle. And then I'm going to split that again So the inside diameter of that recess, the inside diameter of this is 7/8 of an inch. And it starts at the bottom, You try to get it as close to center as you can. Doesn't have to be perfectly centered, but it just makes it easier if it is. I'm going to mark this top band. This will go away eventually. So that's the top of the second cup. That's the bottom of the cove, the outside bottom, center of the cove. And the other bottom. So this area is going to be gone. Any questions so far?
Floor's open if you got a question.
While I'm setting the calipers.
No, there's nothing in chat. Nobody coming forward to be live on it. So doing good, Scott.
Okay. So now I got to have a little bit of light. Ooh, washed you out. I'll try to do it without the light, I guess. Switch back to my badan. A little faster. I'll stop here and mention one thing. An English badan, excuse me, Martin, but an English badan can be used upside down. And you use it like a plane. You can use it with the bevel up, or you can use it with the bevel down. It works both ways, depending on what you want to do with it. If I was going to turn beads, I would use it with the bevel up. Do planing cuts, I use the bevel facing down with the tool handle in a downward angle to act like a plane, like you're peeling the lumber. Peeling cut, I guess it would be called. A little bit more on that side. That's going to be pretty close. That's pretty good. It's just a matter of making your cove. So if I was making this the first time and didn't have balls already pre-made, I'd make the ball first, because the object is to make the ball fit the cup. You can see this one doesn't exactly fit well. Takes practice. This is one I broke the other day taking it off the lathe. This one fits real good. So it's just a skill builder is all it is. That's kind of why I wanted to do this project, because I thought it would be a good skill builder for beginning turners like myself, even though some people say I'm not. So now I'm going to go to a 1/2 inch. I'd much rather use probably a 1/2 inch spindle gouge, but I don't own one, so I have to use what I have. So this is just a hair oversized, which is fine. 7/8 isn't a hold fast number. You just have to remember that you're going to drill approximately a 1/2 inch hole through here. So you don't want this to be under a 1/2 inch, obviously. It can be 3/4. It can be just a little under 7/8. It really doesn't matter. So now I'm going to set the height of this other cup. But before I do that, and I get too far here, like I almost did, like I did the other day, I'm going to hollow the end of this cup first before I get too much thinner.
You're gonna make it easy on yourself.
Right. So you don't have to do it this way, but it's a lot easier before you cut that second cup. Even with this being down that far, it's still thick enough and it's stable enough to cut this. I'm going to use an easy wood tool, negative rake tool. Really nice. You got your center lines on here. Helps you set your tool to the center. I like to run these about 1700 RPM. Work my way to the center.
There you go.
A little better.
Yeah, yeah.
So these cups are about a 1 mil, 10 mil deep. You can see I got that one pretty close already with the tool. This is just a depth gauge that machinists use. It's real
Very
simple.
handy.
Works great for this because it fits across these cups really nice. So I got that one just a hair deep, but that's okay. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take my little hollower. I'm just going to smooth this up just a little bit. If you notice, I'm holding this tool at a slight rake, tilted towards me. And I'm going to take my badan. I'm just going to square up that edge a little bit. And I'm going to take a little bit of and just hit it with a little 150 sandpaper and then a little 220. It doesn't have to be, this is a toy. It doesn't have to be polished smooth because that ball is going to beat up the inside of that cup. Do my little bit of finish sanding out here. And that rim just a little, got a little dimple in there. I'll take my stand. That little dimple over there slows us down just a little bit.
Oh, what happened to the picture? It's getting washed out there, Scott.
How's that?
That's better.
Wasn't washed out that bad.
I had to have the light to see the dimple for the dam. So. Well, now I do one final check just to make sure. I take one of the balls and just make sure that it sits in there decently. You can see that that sits pretty nice. So this end is basically done. I'm going to check it one more time with the jam chuck. If it needs to be sanded a little, I'll sand it a little just before the end. Make sure that it fits all the way. But you want it super tight, so. And you can always sand this by hand at the end if you mar it up a little bit. Right now it feels a little marred, so I'm gonna touch it up just slightly. Perfect.
Looks like it's tight.
It's tight, just the way I want it to be. So now I can go back and finish the other cup. I'm going to change out my live centers. A little piece of leather. I'm going to put this live center in. It doesn't have a point in it. Just going to push this up here. This is just for support. Doesn't necessarily have to be there. It's just adds a little added support. Doesn't have to be tight. Just got to be in there just enough so that it spins. I'm going to take my scissors, trim that off a little. I have several different pieces of leather, so they get trimmed eventually by doing different projects.
It's a good way to protect the wood.
Yeah, and you can buy leather scraps like this at Hobby Lobby. You sell them as scraps, and they're cheap and they last forever. You can pad your vice jaws, and you know that works good anytime you need padding. It works, and it's relatively cheap. So now I'm going to set the diameter of the other cup, the outside diameter. And this one's not as critical, obviously, because you're not putting it in a jam chuck. You can cut it however you wish, as long as it's close to the dimension. Well, just because I'm goofy that way. Okay, it's right on the outside edge. That's my 2-inch dimension. That's where my cove is going to start. I'm sure there's a lot of other ways you could do this, but this is just the way I've been practicing it, I guess. I'll finish this cove. The ball sits in there a little different, but it's okay. As long as it touches the top corners, it doesn't really have to follow the curve of the ball. It comes with practice. And I haven't mastered it yet, but I'm getting better. The biggest thing is just not to change that diameter too much. That's the biggest thing. You can get this out of the way. I'm just going to sand some marks out of there. Yeah. 20. So essentially now you have your 2 cups ready to go. Now we just have to part this down to the final outside dimension of the taper. Tool. Rest back in. And you noticed I didn't measure that, but I just have done enough of these that I kind of know what it is. So it is right there on the outside edge of that. So now it's just a matter of beveling that down and parting it off. And we'll turn it around and make the other cup. Any questions?
There's a question
Okay.
on what the diameter of that second cup that you're working on.
Okay, so the large diameter is 1 3/4 inches, and the inside diameter is 1 9/16 inches. Here. I'm just going to take a back saw and saw this off. You've basically made one cup now, or the center section, other than hollowing the end of that cup.
Looks good.
So far, we ain't got it hollowed yet, Dane.
Yeah, true. You got it, Tip.
This is the part that can flub you up pretty easy. If you don't get this jam chuck made just right, or you don't get your piece cut just perfect so that it fits in there super tight, it will come out of there. Sometimes they break, sometimes they don't. So don't throw that piece away. It goes up in my bucket of ends to get used to something else in the future. I'm gonna get this tailstock out of here because we don't need that anymore for a while. Take this truck off. If you don't want these trucks to get stuck on here, go buy yourself a nylon washer that fits over your threaded air, over your spindle, and you'll never have to worry about getting these on so tight you can't get them off. But they don't come off either. Well, let's talk about this piece for a minute, so everybody knows. So I bought a 1 1/4 by 8 tap, drilled a hole in a block of wood, You can see I tapped it. This is a piece of ash. It was a pretty piece. I probably should have used it for something else, but it's all I had that was big enough at the moment. Now this is just gonna thread on here.
You should throw some oil on there to show how pretty it is.
Yeah. So that's threaded on there. So I took a Forstner bit and drilled this out to 2 inches. This cup is really supposed to be 1 7/8 inches, but I didn't have 1 7/8 inches Forstner bit, so I used what I had. I made it 2 inches, but this dimension on this end is in the correct size, which is 1 11/16 inches. So I'm just going to push this in here now. And you drive it in so the bottom hits, and then you just adjust it from there. That's pretty close. Now I'm just going to hollow the end. I got to get a drink here. Warm in my shop tonight.
Yeah, I got the same thing going on over here. It's warm.
Yeah, that's what fans are for.
Well, normally I got a fan behind me I would have running. It blows all the sawdust and chips away, but if I did that, you wouldn't be able to hear me. One of
It's
the other
running
things
pretty
I like
true.
to do is I like to set my tool rest so that it falls behind that screw hole. Sometimes your tools like to catch on that screw hole if you're doing this. Light cuts. Just holding that in there by friction. This isn't a race. It's a, go slow. Don't worry about how rough this outside edge is because you're going to touch it with a skew or a badan or whatever you want to use to square the end, scraper, whatever you want. Not quite in the right spot. The depth of the hole in this end is the same as the other end. It's just a little bit, about a 1/16 of an inch more to go. I think I'm going to clean up that edge a little bit, square it up, and then I'll come back and finish the bowl. So here's a case where I'm just a hair deeper than I need to be, but it's not much. Just maybe a 64th or 32nd of an inch. It's not going to be a big deal unless you're going to go into competition with these, because they do measure them and for regulation. They actually have tournaments with these things. It's amazing if you watch the kids on the internet how they do this. They must spend hours and hours and hours. But essentially that's done now. That's pretty smooth inside. I'm just going to hit it with a little 220 wherever I laid my 220. Not that piece. There it is. I soften the corners just a little. Any other little detail sanding you want to do, you can do while it's in here. So this piece is done now. Now the trick is getting it back out of here. Well, there it is. The only thing left to do is drill the hole, and that's the last thing you're going to do to this. You're going to make your spindle first, and we'll talk about that when we do that. But that's basically the cup. You can see this ball sits nice in the cup. Any other questions?
No, I haven't seen any in the chat. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Scott, this is Sue.
Go ahead.
Wouldn't it have been easier to make your center hole that you're going to be drilling now when it was square instead of when it's round?
Okay, I'll answer that real quick. So here I have a spike that I made the other day. Here's one that's drilled. Now this has to go on there so that it's the top edge of this cone is up here. Well, I made the spike and it doesn't fit, doesn't go on all the way. The other thing is when you're parting that down, you got that hole to deal with when you're parting it. It's a good place to catch your tool and flip your tool out of your hand because you got a
Okay.
half-inch hole in there, or approximately a half-inch. Okay?
Gotcha. Yep.
I did it because I thought it was safer this way. And after I did it, I realized that it's easier because you're going to have to make this hole fit this spike, which is what we're going to make next. And there's some critical dimensions on this spike as well, where this cup sits on the spike. And then after you're done, you're actually going to pin, get it in the camera, you're going to pin that spike on there. There's actually a little piece of aluminum tubing in there, swedged in there so the string runs through and floats in there. Okay.
Yep.
So yes, you could do it that way, but I think it would be harder. And you got
Okay.
more opportunity to mess up that hole. Right now, if I had to, I can adjust. So something happened to this cup and I haven't done this end, and I don't have this hole in here, I can always slide my piece over because you've seen how much extra I had left over.
Gotcha.
So if you mess that cup up, you can just slide it over because you haven't turned the center section yet.
Okay. Well, thanks, Scott. I appreciate it.
Yep, it's just things that I've learned from making 3 or 4 of these now. Just tricks. I'll also show you how to fix that hole so that spike will fit in that piece. Oh, this gets on here. This can be a bugger to get off. So one more thing while I'm talking about this piece, while I got it in my hand. So I cut those threads in there and it didn't want to screw on there. I ended up having to take a piece of sandpaper on a dowel and take the points off those threads before it would go in here. And when I started looking at these threads don't come to a full point. They're actually a little flattened on the top from the factory. So your threading tap cuts it to a sharp point, and that makes it hard for this to go on there. So if you're making any of these kind of trucks for your lathe and you're going to thread something, make sure you run a little sandpaper in there to knock those tips of those points off once you run your your tap all the way through. Okay. Just
Good
something I
advice.
learned from doing it. Now
Otherwise, they won't screw on tight.
well, they're the right size, but these are machine threads and those are bolt threads. And bolt threads come to a sharp V point where your machine threads usually are flattened a little on the top. So let's see. These.
You don't have that problem with a Beal tap.
Yeah, if you bought a Beal tap, but it's cheaper to buy a regular 1 1/4 by 8 tap and sand them off. The Beal taps are really expensive, and I'm a cheapskate. But yes, you could buy a Beal tap and then you wouldn't have to sand them. Well, now we're going to make the spike. You notice they didn't tighten that in there all the way. As I pre-turned these, I want to make sure that I get, and I didn't mark what jaws they were on. I'm going to use my tailstock to make sure that it's running somewhat true. The size dimensions aren't as critical on this as they were on the other piece. So if you're a little bit off and the outside diameter is not a big deal. It's a little more forgiving. So now I'll just tighten this back up all the way. This is a piece of maple. It's just what I had around. The other stuff, that piece I just turned was basswood. So now we're going to turn the spike. So this is the spike. We'll set this outside diameter, taper this down to this outer diameter, and then do our cut before we do any of the rest.
Scott, could you pan your camera a little bit to your right, please? There we go. That way we can see the whole spindle. Thank
There
you.
we go. How's that?
Much better.
Let me get this light out of the way. I got a light here, so let me move that out of the way, and I can get you a more better angle, I think. How's that? That should be a little better.
Perfect.
So I have this all drawn up on paper, which I'll post on the website. I'll send it to Dave and he can get it posted. So there's only a couple. I'll show you on the paper in case I don't explain it. This 2-inch dimension is a critical dimension. The total length of the spike itself is a critical dimension from the point to the first ring. And then this total distance is kind of critical because it's where you hold it. And then the outside dimension of that cup. The shape of the spindle or the spike itself, yes, I would like this to be at this hole roughly a 1/2 inch. But if you don't get it quite a 1/2 inch, that's okay too. It's not that big a deal. It can be worked with. And that's why I explained to Sue that you don't want to drill that hole first. You want, just in case you don't get your spike tapered just perfect, you can come back now and modify that hole, drill it whatever size you need, and then I'll show you a tool to taper the inside of that hole so that it makes a nice tight fit on both sides of the spike. So we're gonna start this now, put my face shield back on. I'm gonna set my calipers to the outside dimension. That there. So the outside dimension of this cup on this one is 1.5 inches on the outside. The highest point. Okay. I'm going to measure back from the face 3/8 of an inch. So that's where I want my high point to be. Approximately right there. You could cut these in or you can draw them with a pencil, whatever, however you like to do it. I'm going to cut just outside this line to set my height because this will be coved in anyways, so it doesn't really matter if you cut a little bit away ahead of time. Pick it up just a little. Okay, got that set. I'm gonna grab a different pair because I'm gonna need that 1.5 inches again later. The bottom of my cup is 1.5/16. Well, now I have the end of my cup set. Or real close. I'm just gonna clean this up a little bit. Clean the taper up a little. Not cut any more out there. There we go. I'm going to get rid of my headstock again, and we'll turn the inside of that cup. Now this cup isn't as deep as the other ones. It's only 5 mils deep. So I just reset my same depth gauge that I used before. And that goes pretty fast. Now I'm just going to clean up that a little smaller tool. Clean up the outside edge. Clear it up just a little. Check it with one of my balls. Make it just a hair deeper because I cut a little of the rim away.
Totally recoverable.
Just a smidgen more. And deeper is a little better than shallower. Now the ball fits better. I can feel it, it's not bottoming out in there. Okay, we got that done. Ball over here. I'm gonna switch to my Billy Burke tool rest. Bring my tail back again. Except this time I'm going to use a piece of shelf liner. Make sure everything's good. Gonna put a little pencil mark here where my line's gonna stop, because I'm gonna use it for some measurements. So that's the start of my cove or a little taper, and that's roughly an inch. Like I said, this isn't quite as precise as the other one. If you get it off just a little, it's not the end of the world. Okay, so that's the start of this edge right here. This is 1/8 of an inch. And then from there, we're going to do to where the center of that cup is supposed to go, which is 2 3/4 inches. And then the end of the spike to the end of the spike is 2 inches. So your overall spike is roughly 6 3/8 inches total length. Hang on a second. My wife had to come and show me we got a duck nesting in our planter in the front of our house.
Oh, wow.
Couldn't pick another place to nest, you know.
Duck eggs are good.
Yeah, except I think harvesting wild mallard eggs is probably illegal. So I have
Only
this.
if you're caught.
Yeah, only if you're caught, right? So this line here is going to be the center of your cup after you drill your hole in it. How far your to the center of the pinhole, I guess is the correct word. So I'm going to make a mark. You know, my center of my shaft is roughly 7/8 of an inch in diameter. I'm going to make another mark over 7/16 and try to create a little flat spot. I'm going to mark that now, because I am going to cut this center dimension down at some point here before I get too far along. Make sure I got 7/8 of an inch. Pretty close. Roughly 1 3/4 inches left, so all my math came out. So this will get tapered from here to here, and then from here to here, from here to here. I'm going to cut the height of this now, and then I can start my taper accordingly. So the height of that little band is 1 5/16 inches. Just double checking on my prototype. It didn't seem right, but it's right. Okay. That one's set. So now I'm going to take my rougher and just rough this out, because I'm going to clean it up when I'm done. I'll just get it close and then clean it up with a chisel when I'm done. Hole gouge when I'm done. And that's all there is to it. I can clean this edge up a little more. There is no really set dimension. It's just for appearance sake. You just got to have this so that you got a place to put your thumb spot. You can make this, you know, however deep you want. As long as you set these 2 dimensions, you can make this whatever you wish. Now I'm going to set this dimension, which is 1/2 inch, approximately. My caliper's on the floor. How are we doing on time, Dane? We got plenty of time?
Oh yeah, you're good. No worries. I like this step-by-step process that you're going through on this toy. It's excellent.
Well, I made a few of these now, and I haven't figured out another way to do it. I'm sure we'll see some other guys do them a little different. I'm getting a little warm. I got to take off my turning jacket. I can't take it anymore.
Oh no, I like the decoration on it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it?
Sure is.
Is that a welding coat, Scott?
Yes, it is.
I thought I recognized it.
And then it's got the other good club on this side.
Yeah.
I'd die if I had to wear something like that down here.
And it's pretty warm right now. attention.
Oh, so close.
The best to sneak up on it. So this is your high end. If you happen to go, let me use a pencil. This is your high end here against this shoulder. This is your high end. So this is the half-inch end, and now your spike's getting narrower going this way. So if this end is going to determine what size hole you're going to drill, because you're gonna taper that hole to match that high side. And I'll explain that when we get that far.
Take your time.
That's pretty close. I'm going to leave it there because I want to have a little bit room to sand that off, to polish it up and sand it a little bit. So now the rest of this area here is just going to get wasted.
Hey, Scott, what's the diameter of the shaft there that's going to take the hole?
Here,
Yes.
that's 1/2 inch. Going to be a 1/2 inch hole. You got a 7/8 shaft that you're going to go through. That'll give you enough strength on each side of the hole to keep it from breaking your cup spindle.
Yep. So it's 7/8 inch diameter. That's going to accommodate a 1/2 inch hole to be drilled.
Correct.
The answer.
So this is 7/8 of an inch here. You're going to drill approximately a 1/2 inch hole through the middle. Now I'm just going to take my easy wood square rougher and rough this out. You could use roughing gouge. You could use whatever you want. I'm just going to take it down fast because that's the time. And if you notice, I'm making a cone with this. I'm not just driving this in and wasting all that material. I'm kind of making the shape as I go so that when I come back, I can finish it with my spindle gouge, round easy wood carbide if you want. Your roughing gouge, you could finish most of it however you want. But it's just, I'm just kind of getting the basic shape of the taper now. Just to show you, you can use a different tool.
Slow and steady.
And you can see that spindle roughing gouge does almost as good a job as anything, even on this hard maple. Kind of like this shape up here, so I'm just going to refine it.
Doing the lathe dance.
What was that, Dane?
So you're doing the lathe dance.
Trying. there just created that end of the spike, I guess is the best word to call it. Now I'm gonna cut this down here and I'm gonna measure back 5/16 of an inch. That's the start of the actual point, the V point, and I could show you that, but I think I dropped my other spike on the floor.
Thunder sawdust.
Yeah, it was. So from here to here is 5/16 of an inch, approximately. It won't quite be that when you go to after you part it off, because you're going to take the point off. Everybody's so quiet. Are they falling asleep, Dan?
No, everybody's intuitive here, and they're all tuned in.
We're out here. We're
Well,
just
pay
trying not to
attention.
disturb you, Scott.
and some scraping pets.
Okay, I'm just gonna double check my measurements. Gotta have 4 3/4 from here. Now I just put that line on there. It's going to be hidden anyways. That's just to tell me that I got the cuts down far enough. I'm going to give myself one more line on the top. I'm going to try to do this one real light because might be able to see it. You should be able to sand it away after you get the cup put on. So I'm going to rough sand this. Find my sandpaper again. Because essentially your spike is done. Now it's just making it somewhat smooth. That wasn't what I wanted. I've left a little flat spot there. Now I'll cut it off. We'll move the drill and the ball.
Almost Johnny Bench.
Yeah, I was never a good baseball player. So there's our spike. It's basically completed. Now, any measurements that you got to do to set your cage, your cup part, you're going to use this point right here. Because it's still square and it's to dimension. Okay? Because this might be just a little short because of the way I parted it off. But it's pretty close. And you can see that I got this one drilled, a test piece, and it doesn't fit in this one. So we're going to have to work on that a little bit. So if you blow this dimension and you can't get it sized, this piece I have in here now, you can drill it and taper the hole and use it as a jam chuck. And I'll show you on this other spindle what I did. So there is a way to keep turning some of this if you want to turn it at some point. So you would drill a hole in here, whatever size that you needed to drill it, 1/2 inch, whatever it is. And you're going to take a tool like this. You're going to take one of these after you drill this hole and you're going to stick it in here. This is called a tapered reamer. Now I'm going to ream this hole so that this acts like a jam chuck. And you can see I can push that in there and look at how straight it spins. Got very little deviation. And if you want to take the deviation out of it, you can just grab my piece. And I'm not going to find that piece, but I'll just show you. And you can take this ball bearing center, like this cup center, and you're just going to run it in there. And now it runs true. So now you can work on this section. This is outside that section. Here's my mark. Here's the top of where that 7/8 should be. Here's the middle. And now you can work on that and taper that if you need to.
Good idea.
Okay. And this piece is you don't take this piece out until you drill your cups so that this stays true to the spike you just cut off of it. Don't get ahead of yourself, because now you're done at the lathe. Now everything's going to be done at the drill press and with a tapered reamer. Okay. So now I'm going to spin you guys. Everybody take their Dramamine. Because I'm going to move you over so you can see what I'm going to do now next.
The Dramamine, that one never gets old.
Find some stuff out of the way here. Hopefully you can see that. But I can't see my screen anymore, so you'll have to tell me if you can't see it.
Yep, yep. So I can see your sign vise and I can see the drill bit.
Now you're going to take a pencil. And you know that this is roughly 2 inches in between here, so you want to put a mark about an inch on this. You can't hold it in front of the camera and do that. I'm not that talented. Well, basically what I did is I split this distance from the top of this cup to the top of this cup, which is the center of that spindle, or the center right to left. Then I'm going to clamp this in here in a vise. And I'm going to loosen this up so that I'm on the center of that spindle, right to left and front to back. And I'm just going to do it by eye. This is a brad point bit, which helps you kind of get it where you want it. Well, my drill press has a quill lock, so you can lock it down, and with a brad point bit, it'll hold it in place, so you can drill the hole. Now the drill bit I have in there is a little undersized, and I already know from turning this that I probably got this a little oversized. So I have one more size bigger drill bit. Just going to take my digital calipers and measure that center line. And it's roughly a ½ an inch. So I'm going to drill that hole at a ½ an inch. I'm going to change this bit because this is a little smaller than a half. I'm going to change this. And if your drill bits are straight, you shouldn't have to move your bottom piece, your actual work piece. It should go right in the same hole. So now I'm going to drill this. I got my drill press set at the lowest setting. Speed wise, nice, easy, soft pressure. Let the drill bit do the work. See, I didn't quite go all the way through because I don't want it to tear out like that. I'm gonna take a razor blade knife, if I can find it. Lost my knife. So this piece chipped out anyways. But now I'll move you back over in front of the lathe. Around the meantime, and we go, oh no, it don't fit. Now what? Well, you can either put it in here and make it fit, or you can come back to this fancy reamer. Which is here, and I'm going to put the chipped out side to the bottom. And you're just going to put this in here. Hold it between your fingers so you don't cut yourself with the reamer. And you just keep turning this. Back it up a little bit once in a while. Clear the chips out of it. Stop, check it. Boy, it's almost there already. Now I'm just going to take my pencil and make a little mark here so I know where I stop.
Can you hold it down towards the camera, Scott?
Yep, I'm going to lay it on top of this piece once I get it here. So that's where the top of that yoke should come to when you slip this on here.
Hold it down.
And there we go. I got it on there.
How about that? First try. Yay.
Oh,
With the reamer. Now these reamers, you can get 2 of them on. I got 4 of them for $16 or something. It's $26 for 4 of them off of Amazon. If you don't have one. Now you can also make these out of wood and a saw blade. So you can create your own shaped reamer, whatever shape you want, or you can, go out on the internet and search the diameters of the reamers and then create your own accordingly on the lathe. So you would take it, essentially make the spike on the lathe, taper it like this, and then you would cut a slot in it and put a saw blade in there that you've sharpened with a file, and it'll do the same thing I just did here. Okay. So we got one more step to do. I got this on here. Now we got to drill a hole for the string, and it'll be ready to be used as a game. So I'll take you back over to the drill press and show you how I'm going to do that. And then we'll create the ball and we'll be done. Turn you around.
Somebody missing from the chair.
That's because I'm going to cheat. I like this other spike that I built better. So I'm going to use the other spike I built earlier in the day. Just because I like the shape of it better. I like the way it feels in my hand better. So the other one will get modified at some point. So now you got to drill a hole in here. And we're just going to bring it back to the same thing we did before.
Can you raise the camera up a hair?
How's
That'll
that?
work. Yep.
So now I'm just going to put this back in here. Roughly center it. Obviously, I got to change the bit.
Very important.
Yeah, that'd be a little big for drilling our screw hole. Well, I have a piece of craft tubing. This is 1/8 inch tubing, 1/8 inch outside diameter tubing, and an 1/8 inch drill bit.
What is craft tubing?
It's what you buy. So when you go to Hobby Lobby or any of your hobby stores, they'll have brass and aluminum tubing. It's usually in by the train stuff,
Gotcha.
and it's soft tubing. This is aluminum tubing, but you can get brass and stainless in all different sizes, and you can also get flat pieces of copper, brass, stainless steel, whatever you need. So right now my table's a little low. I don't have enough stroke to get it all the way through. So this is an old lathe or old drill press that came from where my dad worked 40 some years ago that I just got done restoring. And it has a rotten table. I have to figure out how to make a lift for the table. It's a bugger to lift up and down. It weighs a ton. It's back when they built good machines.
Mm-hmm.
Good night, Brenda.
Not Brenda. You raise your camera again if you can, Scott.
Yep, I will adjust my camera here in a minute. As soon as I get this threaded back up here and held. I can move you a little closer too now, probably. How's that? Well, now I'm just gonna.
You got the drill handle knob in her way. There we
How's
go.
that?
Good.
So now I'm just centering it on this shaft and this shaft by eye. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just so that it goes through both of them. Roughly centered. I'm going to lock this down again to hold my vise. I'll get this clamp tight. You want to make sure that this piece isn't cocked right or left. You want to make sure that it's kind of somewhat level as best you can. And I just kind of look at it to see if it's going to drill straight. If it's off a little bit, it's not a big deal.
Are you going to use that aluminum pin that aluminum tubing for a pin and a place to put the string, right?
That is correct. So now I'm going to just push this through
Okay.
here. And because this is so close, the tolerances are so close, I'm gonna take my drill, put this in my regular hand drill, and I'm just gonna work it out a little bit.
Got to add a little clearance to it.
So I'm just gonna take this now and just,
Watch your fingers.
You know that, right, Billy?
don't drill
What,
through your
me?
finger. This is a
Yeah.
brad point bit, so it would hurt. You can just wiggle this around. It doesn't have to be, you want this to be semi-snug, but I'm gonna show you if you get it too loose. So I'm
Only
just gonna
drilled
work
into my
this in
fingers
here.
twice.
Whoops. Just spun the hole on me. That wasn't very nice.
Being a booger.
Yeah, it's tight, which is what you want it to be, because it's what's holding the game together, you know.
Right.
It takes a little finesse, that's all.
Hey, Scott, how about you raise your camera up a little bit?
How about I just put my hands in front of it? How's that?
Or that, or that.
Yeah, we're not seeing.
Okay,
anything.
so now I got it through there. I'm gonna take a pencil, little marker, because I want to cut this off. I don't want it protruding, so I want it a little short.
Hey, Scott, we can't really see what you're doing.
How about that? Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But all I did was shove that through, and I didn't make it come all the way through. It's just kind of flush. I'm gonna take a marker so I know where to cut it off. And I'm gonna set you guys over here. One more move, make you even more dizzy.
You're
So
doing
now
it
I'm gonna
way
cut
better
that
than I do.
off. What was that, Dan?
You're doing it way better than I do.
So now I have a Dremel tool with cutoff wheel. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Just got a cutoff wheel in it. I'm just gonna cut this off. And all I did was cut it off, okay? Didn't do
Yeah.
anything special.
Step back from the camera. There we go.
I'm gonna turn you over here because I'm gonna use the vise here in a minute.
Okay.
So now all I did is took a nail punch. It happened to fit inside that tube. I can push that in there.
Hold it closer to the device. There we go.
But I pushed it in there. I pushed it a little too far, so now I'm going to push it back. Now you can see that it's sticking out a little too far on this side. There's a remedy for that. Countersink bit. Find my drill. So I'm going to take and just countersink that off. So I'm going to put this in the vise like this. This is going to be my mandrel to hold this because I can't hold it. Because I know that tube's going to want to slide back out of there. Now I'm just going to, I just made another vise with the countersink. I have a countersink bit. Now that side is flushed off. If you want, you can take a little bit of sandpaper and clean it up. So there's cleaned up on that side. Now this side isn't countersinked, obviously. Sometimes you can get it to countersink. But if you can't, you can set that on there, take another nail set. Put it in here. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm gonna put that in there.
You just move the countersink from side to side while you're tapping.
Yep. You're wiggling it around side to side to flare it out just a little.
Make it act like a rivet.
And
Yep.
you just made yourself a rivet. Okay.
That thing ain't
Now
going
that's
nowhere.
on there tight. That ain't coming off of there no matter what you do. By using that reamer, you got a nice tight fit on that end and a nice tight fit on this end. Okay. Now we'll drill the ball. I'm going to put you back over here, lower you down a little, and we'll drill the ball. Now, this is the tricky part. How do you drill a round ball without a jam chuck that fits the ball?
Ooh, I know.
Tell him,
Carefully.
Dane.
Use
Oh.
some standoffs. No chuck. Remove your chucks. Use 1.5 to 2 inch screws that fit your chuck with your M6 Renovas. And you put some automotive tubing or rubber hose on it, and you got standoffs to hold round and or oblong pieces symmetrically in the chuck. Learned that from Lan Brady.
Put them there. I'm going to knock them on the floor. So, if anybody's got Nova chucks, this is an 1.5 inch box end wrench. You want to take your inserts out, it fits great. If you want to swap inserts around, if you don't have enough inserts for all your chucks. I'm one short. I need one more. I'm going to pop this off. Put that on. This. There. There. I'm just switching stuff around so we can drill. So I just put the drill Jacob's chuck in the tailstock. You can see how Dane was talking. These are just standoffs. These are the bolts that fit. They're M6 or M8s, whatever they are. I bought some nylon spacers and I put some clear rubber tubing that fit the spacers over the top. Now we can take this ball Set it against the truck. You're not going to drill the hole all the way through, so you don't have to worry about hitting your chuck. I just like the way the grain is on this one, so I'm going to do that. You can tighten that up. Now your ball is centered to drill.
You said you cheated and bought the balls. That's not cheating. That's resource management.
Well, Billy,
Amen.
what it'd take me to turn those 1.25 inch, so those are 2.25 inch balls. For me to learn how to turn those, we'd have still been turning a ball in the demo.
You and me both. I said that's not cheating. That's resource management.
And for $1.25, I got them at $1.25 a piece, and I got 10 to a bag. So,
Well, if you had a standalone 6-inch wide belt sander, I could show you how to make them real quick. Really easy.
so I'm gonna run
That's a
this
lot
up.
of sanding, Scott.
So I'm gonna run that up there like that. And that hole has to go in there 2.5 inches. So I'm gonna run this up now. I'm gonna turn this on and I'm gonna drill this real slow. Well, I guess I gotta turn the power switch on, that helps. Sure, everything's locked down. I'm just gonna run this in till this kisses it. And I'm gonna look on my handy dandy thing here, and it's about 5/8 of an inch touching. Just so I don't over drill it, I guess. Getting pretty close. I'll back that out of there, turn my lathe off. Back this up. I have another one of these same machinist depth gauges. I got about 1/4 inch to go. I'm gonna get this started back in the hole. Lock my tailstock down. Now I'm gonna set this at 0, and I'm gonna bottom this out. And I know I gotta go to 1/4 of an inch. Didn't go quite far enough. Another thing to sneak up on. There we go. So now on the bottom of these balls, get the right one, there's a chamfer in there. Now you could turn this with your tools, or I'm gonna have ingenuity and I'm gonna cheat. If I can find my fit. So I have one of these, which is a giant countersink, 1-inch countersink.
I'd say again, this is not cheating.
No, it ain't.
Now I'm gonna run this up here. So this countersink is is roughly the outside diameter on the ball. Show you the ball again. Where did I put it? So this outside diameter of this from outside to outside is roughly 7/8 of an inch. This countersink is an inch. So if I theoretically stay an eighth of an inch from the outside widest diameter, I should have the right size countersink paper, theoretically. You know why I keep this speed low, 300 to 400 RPMs. Make sure your tailstock's locked down. Just run that up in there. Out like that. Now you got your countersink in there. I'm just going to take a piece of 240 sandpaper and just knock off this sharp edge. Try not to hit my fingers. There you go. So now there's only one thing left to do and we're done with the ball. We have to drill the hole for the string. So while it's in here, rather than mess around trying to drill that with a hand drill and get it straight, I am going to drill it on the lathe. Luckily, my Jacobs truck goes small enough to hold a 1/8 inch drill bit. Gee, you say it didn't go all the way through. That's fine. It didn't go all the way through. Now I have enough of a pilot hole to drill it with a regular drill to make it finish the last 1/8 of an inch or whatever is left. Make me use both of them. And actually it did go all the way through. I just didn't feel it. So now it's all the way through. And we'll get a piece of string. And just to clean that hole up in the end of that ball, I'm just going to take this countersink and just clean it up just a little bit. You're going to run your, going to try to thread that through that hole. Which is not easy to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat and go this way. I think it'll be easier to thread it through the piece of pipe than it will be to thread it through from the back side. Now we have our ball. Now here's the trick. According to the instructions, if you're right-handed, you thread the ball from the left to the right. If you're left-handed, using the big cup up, big cup up. If you're right-handed, you thread from the left to the right. If you're left-handed, you're going to use it with your left hand. You thread it from the left or from the right to the left. Opposite of what I'm going to do because I'm right-handed. You just run that through. This is a 19 inches of string is what you need. I'm just going to work the knot as close to the end as you can. I made the string just a hair long so because I knew I was going to do this. And I'm just going to trim this off with a sharp pair of scissors. And you have now just created your game.
Now
Well-
that you've created the game, I have to ask a question. I've been waiting till the end for this. This
Okay.
has nothing to do with how wonderfully you just did this, but I want to know if you have any statistics of how many people have committed suicide after trying to do this game for 24 hours and failing.
I don't know. So if you just noticed what I just did, I threaded the ball backwards. I put the knot on this side. The knot's supposed to be on the inside. But that's an easy fix.
Fantastic.
So here's the one that I completed the other day. It's the same thing.
I love it.
I'll see if I can get lucky and catch it once.
Hey, how about that?
All right. Okay.
So it can be done,
I love it.
and I'm not great at it. But it's a fun game. I think people's grandkids will love it. Like I said, this way to put it on this spike. I'm not even going to try that for you guys because I haven't done it enough to say I can do it. But there's my
Absolutely.
demo. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
We
Good job,
did.
Scott. Good job.
Thank you very much.
Cool demo, Scott.
A lot of moving parts, a lot of details to it.
Very, very,
Good
very
job, Scott.
enjoyable. Very enjoyable. Very enjoyable.
Thank you.
And if anybody's
make it.
interested, there's a lot of YouTube videos on how to play that game from beginner to professional. Just so you know.
Professional. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Yes,
Oh,
they
yeah.
actually have professional tournaments, and the U.S. has a U.S. team.
Yep.
Oh my word.
Called it
When I was
Kendama.
when I was in Korea, we used to play it as a drinking game.
Yeah.
There's an incentive.
Yeah.
I would not have
Imagine
survived.
Great.
So I
Really
did
When I
buy
started
one.
building my tolerance.
I did buy one to get the good dimensions. And I have found that the white ball is easier to catch than the one that's not painted. So if my recommendation is to paint the ball. I think your eyes pick it up better.
Maybe.
I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
it seems like it's easier to catch this white one than it is the plain colored one. Maybe it's the way the light reflects off the ball. I don't know.
Does that one? It has a groove in the middle, doesn't it?
No, it's just a painted line.
Oh, okay. The camera is picking it up. It looked like there was a groove where that blue line is.
No, it's
Yeah,
just a
it
painted line. You can see that it's chipped off from trying to catch it on the spike. That's why I say you don't have to go crazy sanding these because they're gonna get beat up from playing them. You know.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, great job, Scott.
Good job.
Very good, Scott. Thank you.
I hope everybody enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it, so it was cool.
Yeah, it was.
Thanks,
Anybody
Scott.
else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I got one. Scott, that's a good skill builder.
That's kind of what I thought too, because you can use a variety of different tools and whatever you want to use, you know.
Very good job. Enjoyed it immensely.
All right. All right. Well, Scott, thank you very much for inviting us into your shop, putting on an excellent demo and something that I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people going to be making. I know I'm going to make some for my daughter. We talked about it the other day.